Troubles continue for the Red Bull team as a new FIA technical directive is said to be introduced, starting from the Spanish Grand Prix. The target? Those controversial flexible front wings that dominated headlines throughout 2024. But to understand why this is such a big deal, we need to take a journey through one of the most dramatic technical battles in recent F1 history. Cast your mind back to the early stages of 2024. Red Bull seemed unstoppable, continuing their dominance from previous seasons. But everything changed after the Miami Grand Prix. McLaren, a team that had been slowly climbing back to the top, introduced something revolutionary, their interpretation of the flexible wing concept. Now let's break down what makes these flex wings so special. Traditional F1 aerodynamics have always faced a fundamental challenge. How do you optimize a car for both low-speed corners and high-speed straights? McLaren's solution was brilliant in its simplicity. Wings that could subtly change their shape under different loads. Here's where it gets really interesting. These flexible wings solve two critical problems: understeer in slow corners and oversteer at high speeds. Imagine having a wing that automatically adjusts itself based on the forces it experiences, providing maximum downforce when you need it in corners, then reducing drag on the straights. McLaren's team principal Andrea Stella later admitted they had discovered unexplored potential in aeroelasticity. Engineers speak for making rigid things flex in just the right way. The success of McLaren's design triggered a cascade of responses across the grid. Mercedes was quick to follow, debuting their version at Monaco. Ferrari, initially skeptical, joined the party later with their interpretation. And the results? Ferrari's implementation was so successful that they secured victories at both Monza and Mexico. But what about Red Bull? The team that had dominated F1 with their technical innovations was suddenly playing catch-up. Pierre Wache, their technical director, found himself in the unusual position of having to acknowledge their rivals' superior solutions. The team was battling major correlation issues, meaning their wind tunnel and simulation data wasn't matching real-world performance. Adrian Newey, the legendary aerodynamicist who also announced his departure in 2024, later revealed something fascinating. He had seen these problems coming, but felt his concerns weren't taken seriously enough by the team's newer technical leadership. Behind the scenes, an intense political battle was raging. Red Bull, along with Ferrari, repeatedly urged the FIA to investigate these flexible wings. They questioned whether these designs truly complied with the spirit of the regulations. The FIA's initial response? Everything was legal. Teams had found a clever way to work within the rules, just as F1 engineers have done for decades. But here's where our story takes its most dramatic turn. Just weeks before the new season, the FIA has announced significant changes to their testing procedures. The allowable flex will be reduced from 3 to 2 mm on internal flaps and from 15 to 10 mm on external ones. Sources within the paddock suggest McLaren is supremely confident they've already developed something better. They're essentially pulling the ladder up behind them, knowing they don't need these flexible wings anymore to maintain their competitive edge. It's a masterclass in F1 politics. Develop an innovation, exploit it to the fullest, then advocate for its restriction once you've got something better in your back pocket. The timing is particularly intriguing. This push came after a season finale where Ferrari had shown exceptional pace, and Red Bull was finally getting a handle on their correlation issues. By advocating for these restrictions now, McLaren isn't just protecting their own advantages, they're potentially stunting their rivals' development paths right when they were starting to bear fruit. This brings us to the current situation. Red Bull, having invested heavily in developing flexible wings for their RB21, is understandably furious. They've committed significant resources and budget to a development path that's now effectively been blocked. It's particularly painful given the cost cap era we're in, where teams can't simply throw unlimited money at developing new solutions. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of technical politics in F1. Remember the oil-burning saga? Mercedes called for clarifications once Ferrari had figured out their tricks. It's a classic F1 move. Teams often push for restrictions once they have already developed the next big thing. So what does this mean for the 2025 season? Every team will need to revise their aerodynamic packages, but Red Bull faces the biggest challenge. They've reportedly invested heavily in a direction that's now effectively been closed off, and time is not on their side. The Spanish Grand Prix deadline means teams are in a race against time to modify their designs. This technical directive is more than just a rule change. It's a perfect example of how Formula One operates at the intersection of engineering brilliance and political manoeuvring. While Red Bull secured the Drivers' Championship with Max in 2024, their technical dominance has been challenged. The question now isn't just how they'll respond to this setback, but whether this might signal a longer-term shift in the technical balance of power in Formula One. What do you think about this technical directive? Is the FIA right to change the rules so close to the season start? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more F1 content.